Hey friends, it's me. I'm back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Zoom University at Boston University. So what online classes have been like because of quarantine, the classes that I've taken so far, how they've gone, and what I think about them, and just some tips that I have to help you guys, hopefully, if you're just maybe curious about a specific class that you have and how it works, or if you're an incoming freshie and you've never taken a college class period and now you have to take it online. The classes I'm going to be talking about today that I've taken so far, I've taken 5 online, and they're social science, humanities, anatomy, and chemistry. Oh, I forgot the last one, physiology. I'm going to just walk through everything that we had to do for those classes and kind of what I think. But before I continue, if you're new to this channel, hello, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more of my college advice videos. This is part of my Monday mentoring series. So every Monday I put out a new college advice kind of topic for you guys. And every once in a while I'll post a vlog of just me and my life, and you guys get to hang out with me. So if that interests you, make sure to subscribe, comment down below. I answer to every comment. Now let's get on with the rest of the video. So first, social science. With my social science and humanities class, these were part of my CGS classes, which end with a capstone in the middle of your sophomore spring semester. So I didn't get to experience these classes to the full, but I kind of have an idea of what they would have been like. I would imagine that the lecture and discussion would have been over Zoom. That's kind of how every class is doing it, so no surprise there. Lecture, you would have probably just have to have been there, and discussion, you probably would have had to actually speak. Probably just unmute yourself, say something if the teacher asks a question, maybe even go into breakout rooms with your discussion groups. That's just kind of how it's been with all of my classes I've had, so I'm assuming social science it would have been the same. And the good thing about social science is that this class was already kind of online anyway. That's actually kind of most of our classes. I feel we're very blessed to be. Oliver wants to say hello. Hello. So we're kind of in a generation where all of our classes are online anyways, and so it makes it that much easier for these quarantine Zoom classes. So the only real work we had in that class were papers, readings, and then answering something like some topic or question on a discussion thread on Blackboard, which is another online site. And then we had exams and then our final exam. So papers, obviously that's easy for it to be in an online class because papers you write on your own and then you submit online, so nothing new there. Same with the readings. Readings are usually posted on Blackboard anyways. Readings aren't usually like a paper handout in college. So, and usually if it is like a book, you already have the textbook in the beginning of the class. You have to buy it anyways, so that ends up working out because you have your textbook either with you to read or the readings will be posted on a site. And then the online discussion was online, so she ended up changing the final exam to a paper, but obviously we were the first class. It was kind of a surprise. So if you're going into social science, you might actually have to take exams instead of just like a final paper, and I'll explain more about how the exams in CGS worked because I did take an actual exam in humanities, which I'll talk about next. So that was social science. As you can see, nothing too difficult there. It's almost like normal class, except you're not attending the in-person part where the teacher is lecturing. Next is humanities. Again, I would imagine that discussion and lecture would have been over Zoom. That's kind of like the self-explanatory part. And then that class, the only work I had, and remember this is my sophomore spring semester, so this humanities class is going to be different from your first humanities class if you're coming in as a freshman. But the only work I had in that class was readings, exams, and papers. Again, the reading, that's easy because the readings are posted online for you to read. Same thing with papers. Papers you do on your own and turn in online. The final exam, the way it worked is that he wrote up the exam and then sent it to us in an email 5 minutes or 10 minutes before the start of the test time, just for us to have and be able, you know, because of any technical issues, have a couple extra minutes. And then we had a certain amount of time to complete the test, and then we had to email it back to him. So that is kind of like the teacher trusting you not to cheat, pretty much. I mean, this test was short answer, which I'm sure most humanities classes will probably be short answer, but so yeah, we just typed in our little short answer into the test and emailed it right back to him, and that's how that worked. And again, there's nothing much else to say there, because that is all the work we had in those 2 classes, and you can see there's nothing really different except lectures aren't in person and tests aren't in person. That's the only thing. And like office hours they still have office hours, and you like have individual time with them over Zoom. So really nothing, at least in these CGS classes, nothing has changed except the fact that you are not in lecture in person. Because even in lecture, you can still ask questions, you can type it in the chat, you can raise your hand and speak it. So at least for me, I thought the online classes went really well for the CGS classes. So chemistry, we had Zoom, lecture, and discussion. In our discussion, it was like our discussion, like our TF, he did a mini lecture, and then we went into breakout rooms with our group, and then we did a packet together, which is like normal class, except now it's over Zoom. So nothing really changed there, except you're not in person, obviously. Our lab was amazing because they did like the lab for us. They gave us like the results, like random numbers and stuff like that, and we had to do the pre-lab based on like what the lab would have been. Pre-lab is easy because you don't really need anything, you just need like the lab description. And then we had to do the post-lab based on the results that they gave us. So we did not have to do a lab after Zoom University started. We did still have to meet for lab, like we had pre-lab on Zoom, and he would do like a little bit of the experiment for us, but mostly what he would do is like talk out the lab and talk out, honestly, he wouldn't like give the answers, but he would give a lot of information that made it like very easy to get the answers. So that was amazing. It was like due every week. So every week we had a due date. They were due on the same day, like previous labs post lab, and then the upcoming labs pre-lab. Then we had top hat for lecture. That didn't change. If you showed up to lecture, you would have lecture questions and do your top hat. We had sampling, which is online homework, so that did not change at all, because sampling has always been online homework, and I've always had that for my chemistry class. Then for the tests, it was kind of similar to the humanities class, except we had to do it on paper instead of submit it online. So he gave us like answer sheet templates that we had to print out, and then he would send us the test. It would be on Blackboard, which is the online site that you'll get familiar with if you haven't already. And he would set the test start time. That's when the test would be made available on Blackboard, and we would see the questions on our computer and then write in the answer template. So then by the end, he would give us a couple of extra minutes to scan our papers. I think they had to be scanned, but there's like an easy scanning app. So we had to submit them to, I forget what the website is called, but it's another like website where you turn in the work, and it has to be submitted by like the end of the test time. Obviously chemistry was a much bigger change with the not being able to actually do the lab or your lab work. Instead it was just pre-lab and post-lab, and then the tests not being in person. Now anatomy, same thing, a lecture over Zoom. We don't have a discussion group for anatomy, but we do have a lab. And lab was actually not over Zoom. I'll get into lab a little bit later. We would always have like lecture quizzes, but I think we only had one left and he canceled it. but in case we did have that, that would have been on ExamSoft, because all of the other quizzes were on ExamSoft, which is an online test taking service. Really, test taking did not change at all in anatomy, because from the beginning, tests and quizzes were always on ExamSoft, which is online. We would come to lecture with our charged computer and take it on our computer. Assignments in anatomy have also always been on Top Hat, which is an online app. So nothing changed there. Pre-lab and post-lab has actually always been on Top Hat. So the only thing that changed about lab was that we weren't in person doing the lab. Same thing with chemistry. But the cool thing about anatomy is that we never actually had lab work due. We had a lab manual with a lot of questions and like lab work that we never actually had to turn in. In chemistry, you do have to turn in your lab work. In my anatomy class, we didn't. So nothing changed there except that we weren't doing the actual lab. Pre-lab and post-lab has always been on Top Hat, so that didn't change. And then in my lab, we had lab practicals, which is you go in and they give you an actual model. So it might be like a bone or part like a torso and like all the muscles, something like that. And you would have to see what they pointed out. So like if they put a femur, like you would have, the question would be like, what bone is this? And you would say femur. So the thing that changed there, again, the exam was on ExamSoft, so that didn't change. Like the style of the test taking didn't change, but the only thing that we couldn't do is have the actual model in front of us. So what my lab instructor did was put every picture that could ever possibly be on the lab practical in like this document. So she said like there's not going to be any picture that is not on here in the lab practical. So study these pictures. These are going to be the pictures of the models that will be on the lab practical. Make sure you know what all of these are, so there will be no surprises on the lab practical. So for that class, yeah, it was harder not to be in person because anatomy, it's obviously all about the human body and you want to actually see the parts of the human body in front of you. But it was not possible, unfortunately. But we did have the pictures, so it ended up working out. And obviously a picture is not the same, but you know, if you know your stuff, you know your stuff. If you've studied enough, you can watch YouTube videos, which you can see the parts, the models in 3 dimension instead of, or I guess it would still be 2, but you know what I mean. You could see like all around instead of just a picture. So if you study enough, you can definitely do it. And then physiology I'm taking right now as a summer course. So this might be a little bit different because it's just 6 weeks instead of a whole semester since it's in the summer. But I'll still talk about it because I think the way that my professor is doing it is really going really well. And maybe some of you are taking physiology and you're just curious to hear about even a little bit of it. The thing that's different about physiology right now that I haven't had in my previous classes is that my professor is doing pre-lecture mini videos to watch before the actual live lecture when we're all together on Zoom. So for example, the first day of class we had to watch 3 week 1 day 1 mini videos before we were able to go to the live lecture, which was our scheduled first day of class. So that way we have some background info, we have a little taste of what we'll be talking about in the actual lecture, and that way we just are able to study more content in these 6 weeks. And I personally really like that because it makes me feel less lost going into lecture. I know what we're going to be talking about, and the videos I study on my own time. It's not like this specific time that I have to be there and sit through this whole thing and understand and take notes. It's like these videos that I can always pause and play, and I can watch one in the morning, one in the afternoon, one at night, or spread them out within the days. So I think that works out really well. And our homework is on Top Hat, so we always have a homework assignment due after our live lecture, the night of our live lecture. And it's just a couple questions on Top Hat based on the lecture, which is Again, really nice because you always know what you're expecting. It's always going to be about the lecture before. And so far we've only had one lab, but it's worked out really nicely because we've gotten lab groups already. And the way it seems like it's going to be working out is they'll do like a little mini lecture or just like talk out the lab at first, and then you go out into your breakout room on Zoom, and you're with your group and you try to finish or at least start an assignment, but it's always going to be due like 24 hours after the lab. So you don't have to finish it right then and there. You have 24 hours to finish it. But the assignment that we had ended up going really well, and we finished it the same day and we turned it in the same day. What we did was like a lab and a post lab, but I know that there are pre-labs coming up. I don't know how those will work out, but I'm sure it's kind of the same deal where maybe we have to do a pre-lab and then turn it in the next 24 hours. So it's always the lecture and then the homework due that night, and then 24 hours after the lab, something of the lab is due. So far it's been really manageable. It's been really nice. I just got through 1 week, which my teacher said is like 2 to 3 weeks of an actual normal semester. Most of the assignments I see are a group work thing. This is a very like group work heavy class, but that makes me feel better. I know a lot of people don't like working in groups, but that kind of like puts me at ease, because especially with online classes where you kind of have to be more on track all the time of your work, because you're going to be hearing it less. You're not always going to be like in person for your teacher to be like, well, this is new. I don't know, but it's kind of the same thing, I guess. But I feel like with an online class, I feel the need to be more on top of things. But that makes me feel better because you have group members to hold you accountable and be like, hey, this is due today or at this time. So I feel like it's easier not to get like lost with the majority being group work, but there are individual assignments that we've already completed and that I see on the syllabus. And the lab itself is kind of the same deal as with chemistry, where it was a scenario already put out, and then we had to just do stuff. Like they gave us the numbers and then we had to do stuff. And all of the lab stuff that we've had to complete so far has been on Top Hat. And we've had to complete group assignments. Those have all been on Top Hat. And then the actual lab is like a document that you fill out and then one group member turns in. We're gonna have quizzes and a midterm and a final exam, and those will all be on ExamSoft. So the actual exam will be online. It's not like a thing that you receive and have to fill out and send back. It's gonna be an online exam. Okay, so this is the end of this video. I hope it was helpful. I hope it gave you some clarity and hopefully relieved some anxiety about starting Zoom University. If there's anything I didn't cover, please feel free to let me know in the comments. As always, ask questions. I reply to every comment, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more college advice videos, more from me, more about BU, more about my life in general. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day or night or whatever it is over there, and I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy during this time. See you in the next one. Bye.